joins me. Dave, I mean, it's hard to keep up, isn't it? Let's face it at the moment.
Is it over yet?
No, sorry.
No, I've got another 6 months of this. Oh goodness! This season is just it just gets weirder and weirder every week, doesn't it? I mean, the last 2 weeks you couldn't write it, but in the end, it's Everton, and you really could.
Absolutely, both sides desperate for 3 points, as Mike says there. All the commentary coming up this weekend on BBC Radio Merseyside. Well, it's manager number 8, isn't it, for Farhad Moshiri, and he will take control for Everton's game tomorrow against Arsenal. Sean Dyche is the latest in the Blues dugout. And not many will envy him right now as the team sits second from bottom, taking on the league leaders tomorrow. And there's a protest plan for before that game, with fans angry at how the club is being run. Not the ideal working environment, but the new boss isn't fazed by it.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, I'm aware, of the recent noise around the club and all that sort of stuff, but I think it's important. I don't know everything about the Evertonians. I'm learning about the reasons why there's some noise around the club and things like that. I mean, in a depth reasons rather than just what I've read. But the one thing I know about the Evertonians, they stand by their club and they protect it and they'll look after it, and that's what I need now. I need that as a manager. My staff, my players need that full support, that's for sure. So looking into the first game, I think that's going to be really important just as a start point. Before the ball even rolls, we've been working very hard on the training pitch, trying to cram a lot in with the players about the culture and environment, trying to realign what we think. I remind you what we think is important, not questioning anyone before me remotely, what we as a group think. Some of the consistent beliefs in what we think between us, and then taking that on the pitch. So we provide that, and we want the fans to give us a chance to go and provide it for them and to support us, amongst all the noise. It's the old favourite. It's easy to take the wheel of a ship in calm water. It's not so much when it's choppy waters. Well, we want the fans to play their part in that. It is choppy waters. There's no denying it. The club's not where it wants to be. But we want the fans to join in with us. We want the fans to reconnect with us. And it's easy to say, I've got to earn my spurs. Of course, I totally understand that. I'm a bit of a Marmite manager anyway. Not everyone wants you. But at the end of the day, you have to earn your spurs. And I'm willing to put the hard yards in to earn that, to earn their respect. And I want the players to remind themselves. Some of them have earned that respect, but I want them to remind themselves you have to do that. So we've got to give, of course. We want them to support us from the off, and that would be fantastic if they can, get their hearts back on the sleeve. And even the ones that have got angles or problems or questions about the club, they can just park it for a little while, get behind us, and hopefully reconnect with us.
There you go then. The new Everton manager, Sean Dyche, there speaking to the media for the first time. Let's bring Dave back in then. He described himself there as a Marmite manager. I think he's going to be excellent value in press conferences and interviews because I just like the way he's pretty much up front. What do you make of his appointment? Because so much has happened at Everton since last week's show. What do you make of his appointment? Are you happy with that? Do you think that is kind of the right choice right now for the situation Everton find themselves in?
Yeah, definitely. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I mean, if you'd looked back to 2 years ago when we brought in Lampard and Benitez, and you'd have gone, okay, 2 years from now, Sean Dyche is going to be the manager of Everton, you'd have just gone, okay, well, that's just another one to go on the merry-go-round. But if we'd have been a bit more pragmatic ourselves and gone, well, actually, we're in a massive, massive mess here. Maybe Dyche is the one to steady it a bit more, give us a bit more, a bit more shape and a bit more of an identity, and get that identity back that we've just lacked so much with Everton over the last couple of years, particularly with Benitez, which, was never anyone's real choice. Frank's tried, but unfortunately the football's failed for him in the end. So for someone like Sean Dyche, he is he's a pragmatic manager. He's fair, he's strong, he's strong-headed as well. As you said, like the interviews and stuff like that. I've been listening to a lot of them this week, just hearing from him. Yeah, he's a Marmite type of manager, as he's alluded to, but he's been around the Premier League long enough to understand how the Premier League works, and the lower areas of the division, if you like, probably isn't where he wants to be, but has been hindered with Burnley. So maybe this is an opportunity for him to say, okay, let's stake a claim, let's put a proper stamp on this Everton side and get back to where we should be, which is at the moment mid-table, and then build from there, because everything else will start to fall into place once the football starts doing the talking.
Yeah, and he described it as choppy waters, which is quite poetic, really. I think, yeah, it's definitely choppy waters, isn't it? And he alluded to how unhappy the fans are. There is a protest planned for tomorrow ahead of the game that we know about as well. I know there's a lot of social media about that. How much? I don't know. It feels like, I know there's some people saying it could be a distraction for the players. Is it? We've seen at Manchester United a case of where you can protest against owners and support your team. Do you think that's sort of the direction it will go in with Everton for the next few games at least?
I think so, and I think that's what we have to try and put out there, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to upset the team and upset the status quo of what's happening within the footballing side of matters. It's the business side and the greater outside world that's causing all the issues with Everton. But you know what it's like. You saw at Southampton, there was a protest after the game. There was also the shouting of "You're not fit to wear the shirt" and this, that, and the other. But that was just a lot of everything just spilled over. You know, you get in, you put in what you get out of football, and if Everton put in that effort, the crowd will back them. If you don't, you'll know about it at the same time. It's always there's got to be that even keel, if you like, or that kind of balance between put it in, get the result, and get the reaction from the fans, the positive reaction, which is what you need. The protest, I also listened to what Dyche was saying at the end of one of his interviews, where it was almost like give us a break a little bit, like cut me some slack and let me do the football, do the talking. If you need to do all the stuff on the outside, pre-game, post-game, fine, do all that. But the 90 minutes and whistle to whistle, it's Everton, it's the team, and that's the attitude that he wants from the crowd, I suppose, which is a fair point. And I also think the crowd are going to do that as well. I think, obviously with the way things have gone with the managers, as I've said, we've got to stand up for ourselves and say, okay, well, this is how we want it to go. It's going to be before, it's going to be after, but we're concentrating on the team all the way through. And hopefully that's the case, and the team reciprocates with that as well.
How disappointed are you that this is manager number 8 in just 7 years? So, the owner came in and, there was a lot of excitement. He was very much welcomed and he has put money into the club. But, constantly changing the manager is not what, you're never going to succeed with that kind of strategy. So how disappointed are you that this is the 8th manager?
We've almost turned into Watford again, haven't we? You see how many managers they go through. It's almost like we've got that same feel about us. And yeah, I think Merceyside has always looked at the Hollywood manager. Like, obviously tried it with Koeman to begin with, and he's brought in Ancelotti. And then he's had to fall on a sword and okay, listen, I'm going to have to go get Sam Allardyce in here to save our skins because the last manager hasn't worked out, or the last manager hasn't worked out, or the one before that. And for all the money that we've thrown in and everything else, it's just not being good enough. He's not surrounded himself with the right people. That's been his major issue. I think the director of football model doesn't work at Everton. I think for me, it should be, I'd sooner just have the manager choosing the players that he wants, not someone to suit another role that, say, for example, Kevin Thelwell's trying to bring in this model and this is the approach I want Everton to go down. But if the manager doesn't like it and the manager can't work with these players, then, then the manager goes and then he's got to deal with these other players, and you've got to try and get back into that role and into that model that the director of football is trying to put in. And if it doesn't work, which is now the 3rd director of football as well, if you count 8 managers, it just doesn't work for Everton. So I think that needs to go. And I think give the manager the option of what he wants. What does he want out of his side? What does he want to bring into the team? What kind of players does he want to look for? Does he want to look for grafters in a similar role to the way Moyes did, where he looked at, lower league teams and players who were ready to step up and put a bit of graft in? Or does he want flair players where he's going to have to pay over the odds for these players who may not settle into the league? But then that is being given, that sort of permission and that kind of option has been taken away from him and given to the director of football, who at the moment has only given us Neil Maupay and Dwight McNeil. And I think that needs to change as well. I think there's so much going on with Everton that it literally needs a root route check and a route change of everything needs to just go and everything needs starting again.
I think the director of football is something that gets debated across. I mean, I'll bring Mick in here actually, because this has been a question at Liverpool as well over the years. You know, a director of football is very modern. It's a very modern football thing. I can't imagine years ago anyone entertaining this idea of a director of football that was in charge of transfers. Mick, do you think that could be a similar situation that's going on at Liverpool? And, you know, the targets maybe haven't come in and there's a bit of confusion there as to whether whose decision that is. Is it the owners? Is it Klopp? What's going on? Do you think these director of footballs just don't particularly work or are not being used in the correct way?
Yeah, I just associate that term with like stuff not going very well, because like I look back to like Liverpool like having like Damien Comolli as like director of football, and that was like it was kind of looked upon as like, oh, this is going to resolve our problems because this guy's going to know exactly what to do, sort us out top to bottom, and strategies in place and whatever. But I don't know. I just think it needs to be simplified a little bit more than that, and have just kind of go back to basics and have people in the right positions. And I don't know in terms of like director of football, what exactly is it? Like it's a bit of a vague term, isn't it? Like it covers a lot of things, so unless you've got those things are like outlined and you can see exactly what they're doing, then it might work. But I just feel like it's one of those terms that has just been hanging around footy for a long time, and you don't actually know what they're covering when they're doing that job.
Yeah,
it's like a made up role. It's like a made up role for stat nerds.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's almost like we've overcomplicated football yet again. VAR is overcomplicated, and then this director of football seems to have overcomplicated everything.
That's it. And then you look at, Ole, he makes these kind of runs. He's got XG and all these other stats and things like that. So most people just want to know, can he put the ball in the net? That's the kind of that. I think, like you say, we need to go back to basics on how we look at football. Can this lad run? Yeah. Can he shoot? Can he score goals? Yeah. Let's get him in. Not, oh, well, he covers this much ground and he does this, that, and the other, and all the stats are really great and stuff like that. If he can play, he can play. And again, it just seems like a made-up role for people who just love spreadsheets and stats.
Yeah, it's like, it reminds me of my child when he's playing FIFA, and then he lists off all these really weird stats that FIFA give him, and it makes me feel a bit like that, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, I think you're right. It's just a case of how many goals have they scored. That's all anyone really wants to know. Absolutely. Stay there, because we're going to hear from the new manager tonight. I'm going to get much more of your thoughts. This weekend, we will be looking ahead to the Merseyside derby, because you did mention it there. So let's just focus again on Everton, because bleep tests, a woolly hat ban and a questionnaire. That's been the start of the Sean Dyche era at Everton. He is known, isn't he, as a hard-working man who expects 100% effort. Part of trying to get the team out of the relegation zone has seen the manager give all the players anonymous forms to fill out, asking for feedback on what they think has gone wrong.
Well, I think they're open-minded. I think they've been very honest about the challenge, about what it is, what it has been, what it is now, and where we can go. We did a bit of a feedback session on that, so I was happy with their honesty. I think there's a desire to put things right. I think that's relevant and become quite obvious, actually. They know there's an adaptation period for what we want to do. A load of stories made about me doing yo-yo tests, and it's all nonsense. It's just a scientific test, that's all. One of many that we do. I know the markers. I know the physical markers in the Premier League. It's one of a few different versions of tests that I've used down the years. I've got all the data for it. So that was just a marker in the sand, which I explained to the players. Someone was implying it was a question about the feeling of other managers that have been in. Nothing at all. I've total respect for all managers, including Frank and his staff. I'm sure they work very hard here. No question that whatsoever. I can only share a view of how I want to do things and not question others. It is what it is. The team are where they are. The league doesn't lie. I'm not obsessed with league tables. I like the one at the end of the season as long as you're the right part of it. But the current league table doesn't lie. We're there for a reason. It's about how we all correct it. And I think the biggest thing for me is the alignment, going from owner through the chairman, through Kev, through myself, and into the players and into the fans. I think we've got to make sure that's there. But it starts with, obviously, me and the work with the players and my staff to make sure we're aligned, because we're the team behind the team. And then we've got to make the team go out there and perform, quite obviously. And at the end of the day, whichever way you cut and dry, do all the best work in the world or whatever it's deemed, you got to win. Got to win games. Got to get points on the board.
Okay, Dave, I'm going to bring you straight in because, first of all, are you like me? And would you love to know what was on that questionnaire? I would love to know the questions.
Yeah, I think you can surmise your own questions, though, can't you?
Yeah, we
You
could
can definitely put
probably work it
your own
out.
spin on it. Yeah, they're probably not something you could say out on radio live,
No.
but it's definitely something for discussion with your mates.
Yeah, I'd need a bleeps myself, never mind a bleep test, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, first, do you like the way he's gone in and sort of, I mean, it's sort of something that would go on maybe in an office and you get a staff survey or something like that. I mean, I quite like this approach that he's gone in there and gone, right, here's a load of questionnaires. Tell me what you think's wrong and I'll have a look at them.
Yeah, and it's good though because it's not marking your own homework. Then is it? You're getting it straight from the horse's mouth of what the problem is within the club. Have you got an issue with your teammates? Have you got an issue with training? Is it something to do with the canteen? Do you not like your parking space? It just it could be anything that you're not. What is going on and yeah, it's something you might hear in an office, but I don't see what the difference is. It's still a place of work at the end of the day, isn't it? So it is refreshing to see it because I think we need to get to the bottom of what's going on with Everton. And it starts with the team and getting them back into where the right kind of mindset that they're ready to play football. And if they're all arguing and throwing with each other, then it's not good for anybody. But you've just seen what's been going on earlier in the week with bleep tests and training and stuff like that. It's a whole different world from when you're watching videos on YouTube where they're laughing and joking and they're smiling. And I get that, do all that. But there doesn't seem to be any kind of hard work sort of going in with that side. You always seem to be seeing like, oh, we'll have a little laugh and whatever. But there never seems to be any hard yards getting put in that you didn't see on the videos. And to see this now is much more refreshing. And I think you'll probably see that over the next couple of weeks. You'll see an improvement because we haven't looked fit all season. We've looked tired after 60, 70 minutes. We've looked leggy. Players have come on off the bench and not imposed themselves, be that for the time they've been on the pitch, but just in general not being able to get up to speed with the run of the game quick enough. And that's hindered us all season. So to see him doing this and putting through a bleep test, if it's a case where he's going to have him doing doggies up and down, up and down the sand dunes and whatever, then fine, I'm all for it because the fitness within this side is shocking. And that's what needs to change. And I think you've seen that either watching from afar or just, the first couple of days of training.
Yeah, the photograph got put out, didn't it? Where, the players, were all bent over looking like they were in agony and possibly going to be sick. And he had a great big smile on his face, did the manager. And I know it went down really well with the fan base. Something so simple as that kind of united everybody behind him immediately. Something that was disappointing for Blues was deadline day. Firstly, what was your reaction when it got to 11 p.m. and there were no arrivals?
I'd gone to bed about 10.
I knew it wasn't
happening. No, completely. I mean, if they weren't going to do anything by 11 o'clock when they hadn't done anything all month or 5 weeks before during the World Cup, then it wasn't going to happen an hour before deadline day. It just simply wasn't. So I'd just give it up. I'd given up earlier in the day, to be honest with you, because there was just no point. We were scampering around looking at. It was almost like a proper scattergun approach, almost like again, as we're saying about stats, it's like the last minute of deadline day, like you do when you're playing Champ Manager on your computer, and you're going around scrambling. You're literally online looking at names and you're typing in names, seeing if they're available. And I think that's almost how Everton were. And to hear all the stories about they were making all these offers which weren't, it was almost like they were upsetting teams by saying, oh, we'll offer you this, but we haven't got it to offer you. And, going out for loan deals and last minute things. And it was like, you've had 8 weeks. You've had since before the World Cup to do all this. Liverpool signed Cody Gakpo. They get him in before Christmas. And Everton are still scrambling around trying to figure out whether to sack Frank Lampard or not. It was just so poor the way Everton have operated in, not just in the transfer window, just in the last season. We haven't recruited well. We haven't built on what we should have done in May. We struggled around to see whether we should keep the manager and end up losing 5 on the spin. And the whole thing with Everton was just bad. But with the transfer window, losing Anthony Gordon, having money, then being told the money's not getting spent, it definitely left a sour taste in the mouth. And you can understand why the protests are coming, because there's no one seeming to put their head above the parapet and say, okay, we messed up here. We hold our hands up and we're responsible for this, and this is how we're going to improve it. And everyone seems to have gone to ground. We've heard nothing since Tuesday when the window closed. Nothing from the club, nothing from the press managers or anything like that. And it's radio silence. And you can understand Evertonians' frustration because of it. And it's only going to get worse the less communication comes out.
The players that obviously Sean Dyche has got then are exactly the same players minus Anthony Gordon then that Frank Lampard had. Do you think he can get enough out of them to keep Everton in the Premier League?
Yes, I do. I think with Everton, and what I've said to my mates more than once, we watch that game against Man City, that extra 10-15% that was there from those players, that's what you needed every game. That should have been the benchmark for how Everton play. On keeping teams on the back foot, Everton on the front foot, pushing higher lines, and just working to your strengths. And I think if Sean Dyche can get this 10-15% out of players who are struggling. I know he's brought back Abdoulaye Doucouré back into the fold, who's been, he was frozen out for a time. If you can get him working harder again, if you can get Idrissa Gueye back up to speed, who's struggled this season, I think, Amadou Onana, and then you've got the centre halves in Cody and Tarkowski, who he's worked with Tarkowski as well already. So he knows what kind of game plan he will have and what he wants from the manager. So, yeah, I think there's no reason why we can't. I think all we're lacking is the striker is the big one. But we've kept Ellis Sims back in the side. Neil Maupay's still there. We've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin. We've just got to put that service into the box, and that's what we've lacked. We've messed about on the 18-yard box far too much all season and not done anything with it. It's that final third now where we've got to start getting in and getting deeper into it and start actually just causing problems, throw a ball into the mix. That's all we've got to do, and the goals will eventually come.
Yeah, stay there, both of you, because I'm going to get you a score prediction for your teams this weekend. Good evening to Mark, who's listening and eating pizza right now, who says he's looking forward to seeing how the Sean Dyche era gets on at Everton. Yeah, it'd be interesting, won't it? Right, I've got about 90 seconds of the show left. So, Dave, Mick, I'm going to get you your score predictions for your teams. I'll tell you what, we'll go in chronological order because Everton will go first. Dave, how do you think Sean Dyche is going to fare against Arsenal? What's your score prediction?
Really tough one. 1-0 Tarkowski, backs to the wall kind of performance. New manager bounce. Let's go for it. I've got to be optimistic. I've got to start dropping this pessimism now.
I love that. Yeah, absolute scenes if that one happens at Goodison. Let's hope your prediction's correct. Well done, Dave. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Cheers, Giulia. Nice one. See you soon.
Take care. See you soon. All right.